They called us the White Templars, sons of purity and fire, warriors carved from silence and duty, painted in ivory and ash. But beneath the armor, beneath the white that gleamed under dying suns, there was always doubt. I can still hear it whispering through the vox grills of my brothers, threading between the chants of devotion and the roar of bolters. Whose sons are we truly? When I first stood upon the ramparts of Holdfast, our fortress monastery on Sanctum, the wind carried the scent of promethium and rain. It howled through the banners marked with the black cross of our chapter. The horizon burned with the glow of an oncoming swarm, tyranids endless and ravenous. In that moment I understood what it meant to be a Templar. Not a crusader of certainty, but a sentinel of faith standing upon the edge of erasure. We fight not for lineage, but for meaning. We defend the Imperium even as it forgets our name, and though our records are blurred, our purpose burns clear as a holy flame. I have seen brothers torn apart by xenoclaws, heard their dying breath carried away like prayer. I have felt the silence of the Emperor more than I have ever felt his voice, and still we march. Still we kill. Still we endure. If these words reach you across the stars, across the decay and the endless wars, remember this. Purity is not in the blood. It is in the deed. If you walk these halls of history with me, if you feel the echo of duty and the weight of the unknown pressing on your soul, then stand beside me. Like, share, and subscribe not for the sake of numbers but to keep the light burning against the dark. Together we remember the forgotten, the chapters that bled without glory. Now, listen close, for this is our story. Chapter 1. The Holdfast at dusk, the storms of Sanctum never rest. They roll across the mountains like living beasts, dragging clouds of ash and lightning over the fortress that we call home. From the highest tower of Holdfast I can see the storm's edge stretching far across the horizon, turning the world below into shadow and silver fire. The air smells like burnt iron and holy oil. Every time the thunder hits the walls, it feels like the Emperor himself is testing their strength. My name is Brother Sergeant Kalen of the White Templars. I was born in this storm, raised by its sound and shaped by its weight. When I was a neophyte, I used to believe that the Emperor guided each strike of lightning that touched our battlements. A reminder that faith and fury are the same thing when you live long enough in his service. Now, after 2 centuries of war, I know better. The storm does not need a reason. It simply exists as we do, to endure. Inside Holdfast, the halls glow with pale light. Candles burn behind stained glass marked with the black cross of our chapter. The scent of incense mixes with machine oil and ozone. We pray in silence, always silence. The chaplains say words are too small for devotion, that faith should be carved into action, not spoken like a merchant's bargain. So we kneel in stillness, armored giants made of steel and scars, and let our thoughts burn quietly inside us. Our white armor is meant to be pure, but purity is a cruel thing. Every speck of ash, every mark of battle shows on it like guilt. The Tech Marines polish it after each campaign, whispering machine prayers as they work, but even they cannot clean the memory of blood from the joints. Some brothers say the color reminds us of the bones of martyrs, that we wear death as proof of service. I think it reminds us that we are not allowed to forget. We were told our gene father was Rogel Dorn, Primarch of the Imperial Fists, the unyielding one, the stone beneath the Imperium's foundations. His sons built fortresses that never fell. His sons broke sieges with nothing but courage and faith. But our records are thin, our gene seed older than the wars we remember. Some say we are Dorn's forgotten bastards, a chapter born from silence and accident. Others whisper that we are not of his line at all, I have seen captains grow pale at those whispers. I have watched chaplains end prayers early when the subject rises. We are the White Templars, yes, but beneath that title is a question none of us dare to answer aloud. What are we really? The day the alarms began, I was in the training hall, drilling neophytes with wooden swords. The air was thick with dust and the sharp sound of impact. I could smell sweat through the rebreathers and hear the uneven rhythm of fear in their breathing. They were children in armor too large for them, trying to imitate gods. When the Vox grill on my wrist sparked to life, everything stopped. "Incoming signatures," came the voice of the watch sergeant. "From orbit. Patterns unknown. Prepare the guns." The neophytes froze. One of them whispered, "Is it another drill?" I looked at the ceiling. The storm had shifted, its color gone from blue to deep red. The light outside the stained glass trembled like fire. "No," I said. "This is real." When the first impact hit Sanctum's outer atmosphere, we felt it through the stone. A vibration, low and endless like the growl of a hungry god. The sky turned black. Lightning vanished. For the first time in years, the storm was silent. Then the first scream came from the Voxnet. Not human, not mechanical. Something in between. We ran to the battlements. I could see them then. Dark shapes cutting through the clouds. Not ships, not meteors. Living, moving. A rain of flesh and bone. A shadow with wings. Hive Fleet Grendilus. Even now the name feels like poison in my mouth. We had read about tyrannids. We had seen pict feeds. The endless swarms devouring worlds across the eastern fringe. But nothing can prepare you for the sight of them. They move like water, like instinct made flesh. They do not stop. They do not think. They only consume. The order came through the Vox. "Brothers of the White Templars, the storm has ended. Now begins the trial of fire." The guns roared. The walls shook. And Sanctum, our holy home, began to burn. The first spore landed less than 2 kilometers from the outer wall. It split open like a rotten fruit, spilling smoke and chitin into the storm winds. Within moments the ground crawled. The Auspex readings went white, swarming with contacts, too many to count. From the watchtower I saw movement like a living tide. Tyrannid organisms racing across the black plains toward the fortress lights. "Fire at will," came the command from Captain Varric. His voice calm but heavy through the Vox. For the Emperor. For Sanctum. The thunder of macro batteries filled the sky. Tracer fires streaked across the darkness, cutting through the rain, exploding among the advancing beasts. I saw them burn, their carapaces cracking under explosive rounds, acid blood hissing against the rockcrete. But for every one that fell, another 2 appeared behind it. The air turned green with spores. The smell was acid and decay and heat. The neophytes beside me trembled. One of them, Brother Halron, looked at me through his visor and said, "How do we fight so many?" "You don't count," I told him. "You just stand and make sure the man beside you doesn't fall first." We held the walls for hours. Bolters roared until barrels smoked and hands bled. The tyrannids climbed over their own dead, forming mounds of bone and muscle to reach us. Each impact shook the walls, each explosion sent shrapnel of both stone and flesh into the air. I could taste the oil from my bolter, the iron from my own bitten tongue. But the truth is, faith doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just whispers, "Keep going." I saw Brother Helric pulled from the wall by a creature twice his size, its scything limbs cutting through ceramite like paper. He didn't scream. He only shouted a prayer before the thing tore him apart. The pieces fell into the sea of beasts below. For a second I hated him, hated his peace, his surrender. Then I kept firing. "Second wall breached," came the Vox report. "Eastern bastion collapsing." Captain Varric's response was a growl. "Then we make our stand there. White Templars do not yield. We descended into the corridors, moving through clouds of smoke and flickering light. The fortress was shaking itself apart. Servitors screamed mechanical warnings, their voices glitching through the loudspeakers. I remember passing through the Hall of Saints, the statues of old heroes watching us through layers of dust and age. Their stone eyes seemed to judge us, as if we weren't living up to their memory. By the time we reached the lower gates, the Tyranids were already there, dozens of them tearing through the walls with claws and acid. The bastion's defenders were dying in heaps, but they did not retreat. None of us did. We met the beasts in the breach. I don't remember the first few kills. I remember the heat, the stench, the feel of the chain blade biting through alien bone. I remember the hiss of acid blood on my gauntlet. I remember a screech that felt like it was inside my skull, not outside it. Then there was the Carnifex. It tore through the breach like a tank, scattering debris and bodies. Its eyes glowed like molten gold, its claws as long as a man's body. I ran toward it because someone had to. Because that's what we are trained to do. To face what others cannot. My chainsword met its claw, sparks flying. I drove my shoulder into it, fired my bolt pistol into its throat. It roared, hot blood spraying across my visor. Then a neophyte, Halrin, the one who had asked me how to fight so many, leapt from the side, jamming a crack grenade into the beast's jaw. The explosion threw us both against the wall. When I looked again, the Carnifex was gone. So was Halrin. I don't know how long I lay there. The world had turned to sound and smoke. When I stood, the bastion was nearly gone. The few brothers still standing were covered in alien filth, their armor cracked and darkened. I could barely tell who was who. Captain Varric's voice broke through the static. Fall back to the reliquary. All survivors. Fall back and seal the inner sanctum. We obeyed, not because we believed we could win, but because obedience is all that's left when faith runs dry. The reliquary was the oldest part of the fortress, carved into the mountain itself. The door was made of black adamantine etched with the cross of our chapter. Inside it was quiet. Candlelight flickered over relics older than the Imperium's oldest war. We sealed the gate behind us and listened as the Tyranids tore at the metal. Brother Duran turned to me and said, "They'll break through eventually." "I know," I answered. He looked at the golden statue of Rogel Dorn at the far end of the chamber. "If we are truly his sons, he will see us now." I wanted to believe that. I wanted to think that someone, anyone, would see us. But all I could think was, what if he never knew we existed at all? The pounding grew louder. The metal began to glow red where the claws struck. The mountain groaned, and then silence. Just for a moment. Then the wall cracked, and the light that came through was not the light of fire, or storm, or the Emperor's sun. It was something else, cold blue, watching. Something was in the mountain with us. Something old. The light that came through the cracked wall wasn't natural. It was too steady, too clean, like the glow of a data slate magnified 1,000-fold. It didn't flicker like fire or pulse like lightning. It simply was, spilling through the split stone and painting our white armor in soft blue. The others raised their weapons, unsure whether to fear or kneel. Brother Jaren whispered, "Machine light." He was right. The sound that followed it was the hum of power, the deep rhythmic pulse of engines buried far beneath the mountain. It wasn't the roar of the fortress reactors. This was older, deeper, almost alive. Captain Varric strode forward through the smoke. His armor was cracked, one shoulder plate gone, but his voice was unbroken. "Cut through the breach," he ordered. "Find the source." We worked in silence, using our blades to widen the crack until the stone fell away in sheets. What lay beyond was not rock or natural cavern. It was metal, Vast curved walls covered in inscriptions and cables that pulsed like veins. I could see symbols burned into the metal, not imperial, not mechanicus, but something older, something almost human. The tech marine who came with us, Brother Dalen, traced the markings with his gauntlet. "This structure is beneath the fortress," he said, almost whispering. "Older than the chapter's founding. Maybe older than the Imperium itself." The captain's visor turned toward him. "Then why was it sealed?" Dalen didn't answer. He only looked up as if the walls themselves were listening. We descended through a narrow corridor, the blue light growing brighter with each step. The air felt charged, heavy with static. My armor's sensors flickered, registering interference like a storm inside the mountain. Somewhere far away the Tyranids were still hammering at the fortress gates, but down here their noise faded to nothing. The hum drowned everything else out. At the end of the corridor we found a door, or what looked like one. It was smooth, seamless, a perfect oval of shining metal with no visible mechanism. When Brother Dalen approached it, his servo arm twitched and the machine spirit in his armor began to shriek through his vox. He fell to one knee. "It's speaking," he hissed. "What is?" The captain demanded. "The machine," Dalen said, voice cracking. "It knows we're here." Before we could react, the wall itself began to move. The metal rippled like water, folding inward until an opening appeared, and beyond it, darkness. Not empty, but full of faint moving lights like stars caught in fog. Captain Varric raised his bolter, but there was no enemy. Only a long chamber stretching into the depths lined with silent machines that shimmered with faint blue energy. We stepped inside. The moment my boots touched the floor, my visor flickered. For a second I saw things that weren't there. Images, fragments, memories. A world made of light. Human figures standing beside machines that looked like gods. A voice speaking, not in sound but in thought. "Welcome back, scion of flesh." I stumbled, gripping the wall. "Did you hear that?" No one answered. Maybe it was only in my head. Brother Dalen approached a tall device that stood in the center of the room. A monolith of crystal and metal, humming softly. He reached out his gauntlet. "This technology," he said, awe in his voice. "It predates the dark age of technology. It's pure," the captain stopped him. "Do not touch it." Dalen hesitated. "Captain, this could be a fragment of—" "Do not touch it," but it was too late. The moment his hand brushed the surface, the machine came alive. The chamber filled with light, blinding and cold. The hum rose into a deep tone that shook my bones. The crystal opened like an eye, revealing something inside. Not a core, not an engine, but a figure, a human shape, pale and still, suspended in the glow. She was wearing armor of silver and white, smoother than any plate I'd ever seen. Her face looked peaceful, untouched by age. She was beautiful in a way that didn't belong to our age of war and iron. Brother Duran fell to his knees. "Is it an angel?" Brother Dalen's voice shook. "No, it's a human, but not like us." The captain stared at the figure. "What is she?" And then her eyes opened. Blue. The same blue as the machine light. We raised our weapons instantly, but none of us fired. We couldn't. She looked at us not like a creature awakening, but like something ancient remembering a dream. Her voice came not through air, but through our comms, through our helmets, through the machines around us. "White Templars," she said, "sons of the forgotten line. You came home." I felt my heart stop. None of us had spoken our chapter's name since entering the mountain. "Who are you?" Captain Varric demanded, her head tilted slightly. "I am the echo of your beginning." The lights pulsed. The floor trembled. Outside, through the rock, I could hear the Tyranids screaming again, as if they could feel what was waking beneath the mountain. "Your war is not with them," the voice said softly. It is with the truth that was buried here. Will you unearth it? The captain lowered his bolter. For the first time I saw fear behind his visor. I don't know, he said quietly. The forgotten blood. The chamber pulsed like a heart, the light fading in slow rhythm around us. None of us spoke. The woman, or whatever she was, remained suspended in the glow, eyes open, watching us as if studying the dust of time. Her voice lingered in my mind long after she stopped speaking. Sons of the Forgotten Line. Captain Varric broke the silence. Tech Marine. Cut power to the device. Brother Dalen didn't move. His gauntlet trembled above his console. There's no power source to cut, Captain. It's not drawing from the fortress or the grid. It's self-sustaining. The captain's tone hardened. Then end it. I can't, Dalen whispered. The machine isn't bound by our laws. It's bound by something else. The woman's eyes turned to him. You do not command what was made to command you. The air in the room changed. It wasn't just cold, it was aware. The kind of silence that fills a chapel before a god speaks. I felt something press against my thoughts, testing them, sifting through the fractures in my faith. Captain Varric raised his voice. Identify yourself. For a moment she didn't answer. Then her voice came like a memory of thunder. I was once called Elindra, born of the project that gave birth to your kind. When the Emperor walked the stars, I was among those who helped shape his design. Her words felt impossible. We were Astartes, children of the Emperor's vision. To claim she had been there when he made us was heresy or madness. You lie, Varric said coldly. No mortal survived those days. Elindra's expression didn't change. And yet you stand before me, proof that ghosts may wear armor. Brother Geran's voice cracked through the calm. If you served the Emperor, why were you buried? Because truth is a contagion, she replied, and faith cannot survive infection. Something inside me shifted. I wanted to dismiss her as a relic, a spirit gone mad in the dark. But every word she spoke resonated, like remembering a name I'd once known and forgotten. She stepped forward, the blue light wrapping around her like mist. The machines around us pulsed brighter with every movement she made. The White Templars were not born as others were, she said softly. Your gene seed does not trace to Gilliman or any known line. It was born from the Echo Project, a failed attempt to restore a gene line that the Emperor himself erased. Captain Varric's hand tightened around his bolter. We serve the Imperium. We are loyal. Elindra smiled, and the gesture was both beautiful and terrifying. Loyalty is not the same as truth. The hum grew deeper. Data streams flickered across the chamber walls. Names, coordinates, fragments of genetic data. Some of them matched the sigils engraved within our own armor. Others were older than recorded history. Brother Dalen stared at the projections. This is gene code. Modified, pure, uncorrupted. Emperor's light, it matches ours. Varric took a step closer. You're saying our gene seed comes from you? Not from me, Elindra said. From the one who made me. Her eyes lifted to the ceiling as though she could see through stone, through stars. He wanted perfection. The Primarchs were his sons, but they were not his only children. There were others, prototypes, abandoned when he sought divinity instead of unity. The word struck like a hammer. Every oath we'd ever spoken began to tremble. Brother Geran whispered, We are forgotten sons. Elindra looked at him. You were meant to be his white flame, the ones who would burn clean what could not be purified. But when the Great Crusade fell to ruin, your kind was erased, your name struck from the record. What survived became legend, then silence, until now. Outside, the mountain groaned. The Tyranids were still coming. But in that chamber they felt distant and irrelevant. What mattered was this moment, this revelation that none of us could unhear. Captain Varric spoke again, voice low. Why tell us this now? Alindra stepped closer. Because the galaxy is dying and what he built is breaking. You are his last unbroken line. The purity he feared, the legacy he denied, and now the walls of faith are collapsing. If you do not remember who you were, you will vanish as he did, trapped in a throne of dust. The hum reached a fever pitch. My armor's system screamed with interference. I could feel my heartbeat matching the rhythm of the machines. "Captain," Brother Dalen said, almost shouting, "we can't stay. The structure's energy is rising." Then the world exploded in light. The walls shattered outward. The floor collapsed. I fell through a storm of stone and fire, tumbling into the depths beneath the fortress. My comms went dead, my vision filled with static, and for a heartbeat, a single impossible heartbeat, I saw Alindra standing in the light looking down at me. "Remember who you are," her voice said, then nothing. When I woke, the world was silent except for the hiss of burning metal. My visor flickered back to life, painting the ruins in ghost light. The fortress above was gone, swallowed by its own heart. What remained was a blackened wound carved into the mountain's flesh, glowing faintly where molten stone had fused with shattered armor. I pushed myself upright. My limbs felt heavy, my thoughts heavier. My name, and I clung to it like a weapon. Brother Lorian of the White Templars. That was the anchor, the creed, the chain that kept madness at bay. My vox crackled weakly. "Rian, you alive?" Captain Varric's voice, hoarse, strained but alive. "I endure," I answered. "Brothers?" One confirmed. "Dalen's gone, Jiran, still searching." The silence that followed said more than words could. I looked around. Fragments of ceramite and shattered relics littered the crater. Alindra's machine, the shining heart that had filled the chamber, was gone. Only scorched metal and strange crystalline residue remained, pulsing faintly with dying light. I approached it, each step echoing in the hollow wind. The residue wasn't dust or glass. It shimmered, alive, almost breathing. When I touched it, my gauntlet hummed. For an instant I saw something, not a memory, a vision. I stood on a plain of gold beneath a sky that burned with the light of the Emperor's glory. Legions marched in silence, endless, perfect, and among them strode figures I did not know. Giants not of any legion I'd studied. Armor white as bone, trimmed with gold that shimmered like dawn. Their banners bore no symbols of known heritage, just a single mark, a circle broken at the top like an unfinished halo. Then it vanished, and the world returned to ash. I withdrew my hand, trembling. The mark lingered in my mind. The same symbol, faintly etched into the armor beneath my pauldron, a detail I'd never questioned until now. Captain Varric's boots crunched over stone behind me. His armor was scorched, his left pauldron torn away. He looked like a relic of war, broken but still burning with purpose. "She's gone," he said flatly. "The woman, the machine, everything." "Not everything," I replied, showing him the residue. "She left something behind." He knelt beside it, scanning the fragments. His helm's optics flickered with data. Gene material. Traces of power I can't identify. "Emperor's mercy," he exhaled, the sound heavy through his vox grill. "Lorian, what did we awaken?" "She said we were something lost, something erased. She was a liar. Then why does her truth feel like ours?" He didn't answer. None of us could. Because deep down we already knew. A new voice crackled over the comms, and Jiran. "Captain, I've found an exit route, but you'll want to see this." We followed the signal through the fractured tunnels, passing through what remained of the fortress's lower decks. The walls were scorched, but some held. As we moved deeper, we found them. Carvings hidden beneath the layers of rock and steel. Symbols. Not Imperial, not Xenos. The same unfinished halo repeated again and again, accompanied by verses in ancient High Gothic. From light unbroken comes the flame that cleanses all. The script was carved by hand, as if someone had tried to preserve it even as the fortress was built around it. Duran met us at a collapsed archway. Beyond it, the tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber. It was older than the fortress, far older. In its center stood a massive sarcophagus of silver and white, covered in seals of wax and scripture long decayed. The same symbol, that broken halo, gleamed at its crown. We approached in silence. My heart's pounded. The air was thick with the scent of promethium and dust, but beneath it was something else, something like incense. Varric traced a finger across the ancient lettering. "This script predates the Imperium," he murmured. "No records of it in the Librarium archives." Duran's voice shook. What if this was here before the fortress was even built? Before the captain could respond, the sarcophagus hissed. Slowly, impossibly, its seals began to unbind, and not by touch but by presence. It knew we were there. "Step back," Varric barked, raising his bolter. The lid shifted. Steam poured out in a whispering veil. Inside what lay wasn't bone. It wasn't human. It was a figure encased in pristine armor, white and gold, untouched by time. A warrior of impossible design, larger than any Astartes, yet not quite a Primarch. His eyes were closed, his face serene, carved with the perfection of the Emperor's own genetic artistry. Duran's voice trembled. "Captain, it's one of them. One of the prototypes she spoke of." Varric's grip tightened on his weapon. "We seal this tomb now. Whatever this thing is, it's beyond our sanction." But I couldn't look away. Something about the warrior's face drew me in. A quiet familiarity, like recognizing a brother you'd never met. Then his eyes opened. Light spilled out, not bright, but holy, burning through the air like dawn breaking through the void. Every servo in my armor froze. My thoughts shattered under the weight of it. He looked at me, through me, and spoke with a voice that was both thunder and whisper. "You bear my blood." The words tore through the silence like a blade. Then the light went out, and the chamber fell into darkness. Chapter 3. The Awakening of the First Flame. The light that filled the chamber vanished as quickly as it came, leaving the taste of ozone and metal on my tongue. The echoes of that voice still rang in my mind, low and commanding, like the hum of a ship's reactor at the edge of hearing. "You bear my blood," I tried to speak, but my throat was dry. Duran fell to one knee beside me, his vox stuttering with static. Captain Varric stood frozen, bolter raised as though any movement might break the fragile silence. The figure inside the sarcophagus was still. His eyes now closed again, his expression calm, like nothing had happened. "Was that real?" Duran whispered. Varric answered without looking away. "It doesn't matter. It never happened." But the captain's voice cracked on the last word. He didn't believe it either. None of us did. We gathered our senses, scanning the chamber. The readings were strange. Biosigns and machine code tangled together, readings flickering between human and something else. I could feel the machine spirit of my armor grow restless, like it was whispering prayers in binary I could almost understand. "Captain," I said. He knew us. Varric turned on me, eyes burning behind his cracked helm. He spoke. "That's all. Machines speak. Demons speak. You will forget the words, but I couldn't. They had branded themselves into my mind, seared behind my eyelids. You bear my blood." Duran stepped closer to the sarcophagus, his gauntlet tracing the air above the surface. "It's like the thing we found in the fortress. The same material. Living alloy, fused with gene code." Varric snapped his gaze toward him. "Do not touch it. Duran froze. I wasn't going to. Good, because if you do and something inside decides to wake, I'll have to kill it. And you. Even through his helmet I could sense the captain's fear, not of death but of knowledge. Of discovery. Because in the Imperium, truth is the most dangerous weapon of all. A sound rippled through the chamber. Not a voice, but a low, resonant hum that came from the walls themselves. The runes carved into the stone began to glow faintly, reacting to our presence. Words formed in the ancient script, spreading like fire across the surface. I could read none of it, yet somehow I understood. It was a record. A story burned into the bones of this place, long before the Imperium, before even the Primarchs. There were others, prototypes she had called them, warriors not born from a father's seed but from an emperor's dream that faltered, the first experiments in divinity. Some were stable, others monstrous, but they were all destroyed. Or so history said. I felt my heart's beat faster. The symbol on that broken halo was everywhere now, gleaming on the walls, on the sarcophagus, and faintly beneath my own armor's paint, where age had worn the heraldry thin. Captain, I whispered, what if we are not just another chapter? What if the White Templars are— Silence, he snapped. We are sons of Dorn, we are loyal. We do not question our bloodline. But what if it was altered? He turned sharply, his voice cutting like a blade. Enough! Do you want the Inquisition to burn our world? Do you want every brother on our ships purged because of a heretic whisper? I stepped back. He was right, of course. Truth killed faster than any bolter. But as we turned to leave, the sarcophagus moved again. This time it was not gentle. The chamber shook, dust falling in a silent rain. The massive lid slid fully aside with a grinding roar. The warrior within rose, his armor shining faintly even in the dim light. Every servo word with ancient grace, like a relic coming to life after 10,000 years. Captain Varric raised his weapon. Stay where you are, thing. The warrior's gaze found him. I am no thing. I am the beginning. The voice wasn't amplified by vox or machine. It simply existed everywhere, around us, inside us. I felt it vibrate through my bones. Varric hesitated only for a heartbeat before firing. The bolter roared, shells striking the figure's chest in flashes of light. But when the smoke cleared, the warrior still stood, unmoving. He looked down at the impact marks on his armor, faint scorch lines, nothing more, and then back at the captain. Your weapons cannot harm your maker's shadow. The captain fired again, screaming a prayer to the Emperor, and that was when the warrior raised his hand. The air rippled and the bolter rounds hung frozen in mid-flight. Every one of them, suspended trembling, then they turned to dust. Jaren fell to his knees. Emperor, preserve us! The warrior stepped forward, towering above us. Do not fear. I am no god. I was the dream that came before gods. You carry fragments of me, though you do not know it. You were not made from Dorn's blood alone. The chamber was silent except for the slow hiss of the warrior's breath. Varric lowered his weapon at last. Then what are we? The warrior's gaze softened, almost human. You are the echo of perfection. The Emperor tried to forget us. But even he cannot erase what was once divine. His words settled over us like dust, heavy, ancient, undeniable. Then he looked to me again. You especially. You are closest to the original flame, my voice shook. Why me? Because you remember. Even when the Imperium tells you not to. He reached out and placed his gauntlet over my pauldron. The contact sent a surge of warmth through my body. So strong I thought my armor's systems would overload. Visions flickered before my eyes. Stars dying, worlds reborn. An emperor not yet chained to the throne. When I looked up again, he was gone. Only the echo of his voice remained, whispering through the darkness. The fire is not dead. It waits. When I woke, I was still in the chamber, but the light had changed. The flickering red of emergency runes painted the walls in a dull heartbeat. The sarcophagus was empty. The warrior, whatever he had been, was gone. Only a faint scorch mark remained where his feet had touched the stone. Duran lay nearby, breathing heavily, his armor cracked open like a shell. Captain Varric was slumped against the wall, helmet off, his face pale and trembling. I had never seen him without his helm. He looked smaller somehow, human. He vanished, Duran said quietly, as if the words themselves might summon the thing back. Varric's voice was a whisper. We saw nothing. Do you understand me? Nothing. The captain tried to stand, but his legs failed him. I went to help him up, and for a moment his eyes met mine. There was something there I had never seen before, fear. Not of the enemy, but of knowledge. The Inquisition would burn us all, he said. The Ecclesiarchy would call us cursed. We bury this. We burn the data slate. We seal this vault. The Emperor tests our faith, and we will not fail. Duran's hand tightened on his weapon. But what if that thing was right? What if we're not Dorn's sons? Varric turned on him with a fury that was almost pain. Would you rather be the sons of something forgotten? Something forbidden? I wanted to speak, but no words came. I could still feel the warmth of that touch through my armor. My system said there was no residual energy, yet my body knew otherwise. It was like carrying a small sun beneath my ribs. Captain, I said slowly, if we destroy the evidence, it will not erase what we saw. His voice dropped low. Then you will forget what we saw. You will swear upon your gene seed, upon your chapter's soul, that this memory dies here. The Emperor demands obedience, not curiosity. Duran laughed bitterly. The Emperor demands everything, doesn't he? Before the captain could answer, the ground shook. A tremor ran through the ancient chamber, dust falling like rain. Warning lights flickered on our helm displays. There were seismic readings, deep ones. Something was waking beneath the surface. Varric raised his helm again, snapping back into command. Enough talk. We leave. Now. We sealed the chamber behind us, burning the runes from the walls with plasma charges. The data slates, the relic fragments, everything we had taken, we destroyed them all. But as the flames rose, I saw one thing the fire could not touch. That strange broken halo symbol, carved into the stone above the door. The heat licked it, but it did not burn. It glowed faintly like an eye watching us go. We returned to orbit in silence. The void around the planet was strangely quiet. No warp interference, no vox distortion. It was as though the system itself held its breath. In the days that followed, our fleet received orders to depart. No reason given. Just the standard transmission. By the authority of the High Lords of Terra, the White Templars are recalled to crusade strength. Redeploy immediately. Captain Varric obeyed, of course. He always did. But I noticed the tremor in his hand whenever he touched the aquila on his chest plate. At night in my chamber I dreamed. Always the same vision. That ancient warrior standing on a field of ash, the broken halo burning behind him like a dying sun. He would raise his hand toward me and whisper the same words. The fire is not dead. It waits. Sometimes I would wake with my armor systems active, servos whining, power field crackling. The apothecaries called it a malfunction. The chaplains called it doubt. But deep down I knew it was something else. Something was waking inside me. During the next campaign, the change began to spread. Brothers who had been injured beyond saving began to recover faster than augurs could explain. A wound that should have taken weeks to heal sealed in hours. Even death itself seemed uncertain. One of our dead stirred again on the slab, gasping for breath, his eyes glowing faintly beneath his lids. The apothecaries were afraid. The chaplains began to whisper of miracles. Varric called them signs of purity. But I could see it for what it was. The flame was returning. One night, when the ship drifted through the silence of the void, I found Duran alone in the armory. His face was pale, his eyes distant. "It's inside us," he said. "I can feel it. Like something ancient is watching through my eyes." I nodded. "The flame," he turned to me, trembling. "If the Emperor tried to destroy it, maybe he had a reason." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe he couldn't." A sudden vibration rolled through the ship, distant, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Every lumen flickered. Vox channels hissed. Then from the speakers, faint and broken, came a voice. "You bear my blood." Duran looked at me, terrified. "He's calling us." And I understood then, and the fire wasn't waiting for permission. It was calling us home. Chapter 4. The silent crusade. Silence has a sound. It hums in the void between stars, a low and constant whisper that gnaws at the edges of sanity. We had sailed through that silence for 41 days before the Vox finally died. No hymns, no orders, no contact from the Imperium. Only the cold murmur of the warp outside our Geller fields and the soft scrape of our armor against deck plates. The crusade had begun in secrecy. The High Lords had denied it, and even the Inquisition had turned its gaze away. Our orders came sealed in wax and sin, delivered by a custodian who did not speak a word. He gave us only a single data slate and a warning. There will be no record of this war. There must be no survivors to tell it. Then he left, vanishing into the black like a ghost. The slate contained coordinates, a region beyond sanctioned warp routes, far past the fringes of the Segmentum Pacificus. The system's name was erased, its planets uncharted, but in the faint static of the recording, I could hear something beneath the signal. A heartbeat, slow, mechanical, familiar. We were told it was a world lost to time, one once touched by the Great Crusade and then abandoned. But the truth was worse, much worse. The White Templars are hunters of heresy, purifiers of the unclean. But what we found out there in the dark was no heretic. It was a memory, something that remembered us. Our strike cruiser, Pax Eterna, broke warp above a dead sun. The planet below was a wound of rust and ash. No atmosphere, no life signs. Yet on its surface stood cathedrals still burning with faint white fire, our fire. The insignia carved into their stone matched ours exactly, though none of us had ever been here. It was as if our chapter had already been to this world centuries before, and left it behind. "Deploy drop pods," I ordered. "Standard formation. Purity protocols active." My voice sounded hollow inside my helm. I could feel the unease ripple through the squad. Even through layers of ceramite and gene-coded discipline, the planet's gravity dragged us down like a judgment. The moment we broke the clouds of dust, I saw them. Statues, thousands of them, arranged in lines across the valley. Space Marines kneeling, every one of them clad in white armor. Everyone marked with the cross of the White Templars. We landed among them. The silence was crushing. No wind, no decay, just the stillness of dead perfection. Brother Sergeant Varen knelt beside one of the statues, brushing away the rust. "It's not stone," he murmured through the Vox. "It's armor." I looked closer. He was right. These were not statues, they were bodies. Perfectly preserved, locked in eternal prayer, their armor fused by some unknown energy. No damage, no signs of battle. Only stillness. A warning rune flared inside my helm. Radiation. Trace warp residue, like an echo of sorcery long extinguished. The chaplain raised his Crozius, reciting wards against corruption. "No demon leaves a shrine this quiet," he said. "No god abandons his worshippers so completely." We advanced toward the main cathedral. Its gates hung open, glowing faintly with residual heat, though no flame burned. Inside, the walls were covered in words. Our creed, our own oath of white fire carved into the stone in a language only we were ever taught. but every line ended the same way. "We are not forgiven." Brother Varen's voice trembled across the Vox. "Captain, look." At the altar stood a figure in white armor, motionless. A sword plunged through his chest, the blade still humming faintly with power. His armor bore my own heraldry, the same insignia, the same purity seals, even the same name, Lucian Alaric. The room spun around me. My genetic code, my memories. Every brother in the chapter carried fragments of those who came before. Could this be a predecessor? A founder? Or something worse? Something repeating itself through us again and again until the curse was complete? Then the Vox crackled. A voice, faint but certain, whispered through the static. "You should not have come back." The chaplain turned, his eyes burning behind his helm lenses. Who speaks? No answer. Only the low hum of that same heartbeat pulsing through the walls. And for the first time in my life, I realized purity had a limit. Oaths have a price, and the White Templars had already paid it once before. The heartbeat grew louder as we descended deeper into the cathedral's crypts. It wasn't sound exactly, it was vibration, a steady rhythm that shook through the stone, echoing in the marrow of my bones. Every step forward made it stronger, as if the planet itself were breathing beneath our feet. We passed through a corridor lined with alcoves, each containing a sarcophagus. The inscriptions on the lids were written in High Gothic, but every name was a White Templar. Everyone. None of them recorded in our archives. Brother Varen's voice came through the Vox again, low and uncertain. "Captain, we shouldn't be here. This whole world feels wrong." I didn't answer. My hand stayed on my bolt pistol, though I knew it would mean nothing if what I suspected was true. At the end of the hall stood a gate sealed by a massive aquila. Its wings were rusted, but the Emperor's face was carved in pristine ivory. As I approached, the twin lenses of his eyes began to glow, scanning me with cold white light. The gate opened. Beyond it was a chamber that defied geometry. Its ceiling curved inward like a rib cage, its walls lined with dead machinery, humming faintly with psychic residue. A throne stood in the center, draped in banners older than any chapter record. Upon that throne sat another warrior in white. His armor was shattered, his helm cracked, revealing a skull half machine, half bone. Tubes connected him to the throne's structure like veins to a heart. "Identify yourself," I demanded. The figure's voice was not a voice at all. It was a chorus of overlapping tones, human and machine together. "Lucian Alaric," it said, "Captain of the Ninth Crusade. You have returned." For a moment I could not breathe. The Ninth Crusade? That was over 2 millennia ago. Those records were lost. The figure tilted its head, servos whining. Not lost, buried. By order of the High Lords, sealed beneath prayer and denial. We were the first White Templars to find the machine god's echo. We tried to purify it. Instead, it purified us. The air thickened with static. The hum of the planet shifted to a deeper tone, like the growl of something awakening. I could hear the words from the stone walls around me, repeated in the same chant over and over. "We are not forgiven. We are not forgiven." Brother Varen raised his weapon, shaking. "What are you?" The figure looked directly at him. "We are what you will become." A surge of light exploded from the throne, blinding and pure. When my vision cleared, the figure was gone, but the sarcophagi in the walls began to open one by one. Inside each lay another White Templar, their armor ancient, their eyes burning with that same unnatural white fire. They stepped out silently, weapons in hand, as if continuing a duty that had never ended. "By the Emperor," Varan whispered. "They're us." The first of the revenants raised its sword, a relic blade inscribed with the same purity seals we bore. "The crusade must continue," it said in a voice without breath. "No forgiveness. No retreat. Only silence. I felt the warp tremor through the air. It was not demonic, no, it was worse. It was holy machinery corrupted by faith. The echo of devotion fed back upon itself until it became self-sustaining. The planet was their tomb, their chapel, and their engine, and now it wanted us to join them. Fall back, I roared. Bolter fire lit the crypt like lightning. The revenants did not scream. They did not bleed. They simply advanced, step by step, their white armor unmarred. Baron went down first, a blade through his chest. The chaplain's Crozius smashed another into fragments of ceramite and light. But for each that fell, 2 more emerged from the walls. I fired until my bolt pistol clicked empty, then drew my sword. The hum was deafening now. My vox filled with overlapping voices. My own voice among them, whispering prayers I did not remember saying. I realized then what this place was. Not just a grave, but a mirror. The White Templars had found something in the dark long ago, something that reflected their faith back at them until it consumed them completely. We reached the surface again. The airless void pressing down around us. The horizon glowed white. The statues we had passed before were moving, turning their heads toward us, eyes igniting one by one. Evacuation protocols. I ordered. Get to the drop pods, now. As we ran, I looked back once more at the cathedral. The figure on the throne had returned, watching from the doorway. Its hollow face burned with that same impossible fire, and though no sound came through the vacuum, I could feel its words in my skull. The crusade does not end, brother captain, not while the light of faith still burns. Our drop pods fired into the void, the world shrinking behind us into a pinprick of pale light. Yet the heartbeat followed us, pulsing faintly through the hull. I could still hear it when I closed my eyes. It wasn't until later, when the astropaths tried to contact the fleet, that they realized something was wrong. The Vox signature we transmitted from orbit didn't match our own. It matched the same call that had lured us there in the first place. The storm followed us into the void. It wasn't a storm of matter or energy, but of thought. A low, endless whisper through the ship's hull, like the echo of a prayer spoken by a dying world. The Vox screamed with feedback, every channel flooded with that same faint heartbeat. We were out of the planet's orbit, but the silence of it clung to us like a shadow that refused to die. The sanctity of Dorn was a vessel of war and faith, its decks once filled with the disciplined stride of battle brothers and the steady pulse of machine hymns. Now it felt hollow. Too hollow. The ship's spirit, the ancient machine ghost bound into its engines, had gone quiet. Even the servitors paused in their work, motionless at their stations as if listening to something beyond sound. Brother Varen's armor was still sealed where we had laid him in the chapel. No one had spoken since. The chaplain stood before the altar, whispering the litanies of remembrance, his voice trembling despite himself. I tried to pray too, but the words caught in my throat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that throne again, and the figure of Lucian Alaric staring back at me with a face that was half my own. Then came the first flicker, a ripple through the deck lighting. A moment of pure stillness, and then the auspex lit up with false readings. Dozens of life signatures moving in patterns that mirrored our own. It's an echo, I told myself. Residual warp interference from the planet. But when I looked at the monitors, I saw them, white armored figures moving through the corridors, step for step, shadow for shadow, perfectly synchronized with our patrols, brothers, said the chaplain, his voice raw. Seal the lower decks. Something walks with us. We descended into the heart of the ship where the light never fully reached. Every corridor hummed faintly with the same pulse as the crypt. The air tasted metallic, charged with the scent of ozone and incense. Then from the darkness ahead came the sound of bolter fire. We rushed to respond, but when we arrived the corridor was empty. Only scorch marks and shell casings. The squad that had been stationed there was gone, their Vox signal still active but faint as if transmitted from somewhere far away. Or some when the chaplain turned to me. "Captain, what if they never left that world? What if we didn't either?" His words froze the air between us. I wanted to dismiss it as fear-talking, as the lingering touch of a warp anomaly. But the truth clawed at the back of my mind. When we had left orbit, I had checked the star maps myself. They were wrong. Every constellation twisted, every coordinate off by fractions that should have been impossible. It was as though we were still in the same system, just reflected through something else. Then I heard the sound. A single slow knock, 3 beats like a gauntlet striking metal. It came from the chapel's inner door. We turned as one, weapons raised. The knock came again, louder, deliberate, and then the door opened. A white Templar stepped through. His armor was pristine, his tabard marked with the crimson cross of our chapter. For a moment I almost believed it was one of our brothers who had survived the surface, but his movements were wrong. Too smooth, too deliberate. He looked at me and I saw that his eyes glowed faintly white beneath the helm. "Lucian Alaric," I whispered. He inclined his head slightly. "Captain," he said, "you have come far. But the crusade is not yet done. Your brothers await." I took a step back, my bolt pistol trembling in my gauntlet. "You died centuries ago." His voice was calm, almost kind. "There is no death, only service. The Emperor's light does not end. It only changes form. We have become what he needed us to be, eternal." The chaplain raised his crozius. "You are not his will. You are a lie born of the machine." Lucian turned to him, the glow of his eyes intensifying. "Faith and machine are the same when purpose is pure." Then the ship shuddered, a deep grinding noise that came from the very heart of the vessel. Lights flickered. From the walls came hands, not flesh but metal, reaching out like the ship itself was awakening. The sanctity of Dorne was changing, its machine spirit merging with the echo of the planet below. Over the Vox, voices spoke, our own voices, reciting battle prayers from campaigns long past. The bridge reported that navigation had locked onto an unknown course, directly back toward the Persian Vale. No matter what we did, the engines ignored all commands. Lucian reached out his hand. "Come with us, brother captain. Join the Eternal Crusade. Your faith has brought you this far, do not turn away now." For a heartbeat I almost did. There was a peace in his voice, and cold, mechanical, but peaceful nonetheless. The promise of endless purpose, unburdened by doubt. But then I saw Varen's armor again in the chapel. The purity seal still stained with real blood. That was what faith meant, sacrifice, not surrender. I raised my sword. The White Templars served the Emperor, not the ghosts of their own reflection. Lucian's expression didn't change, but the light in his eyes dimmed slightly. "Then you will burn in silence." He vanished in a burst of light and the deck beneath us split apart. Flames rose from the cracks, licking the air with the stench of burning oil and sanctified wax. The ship groaned like a living beast, its hull bending under invisible pressure. Through the chaos, I gave the order to purge the lower decks, a sacrilege against the machine spirit, but our only chance to sever whatever link still bound us to that cursed echo. The chaplain stayed behind to perform the rite, his final words echoing through the Vox. "If we fall, let the Emperor remember us as we were, not what we became." And then the transmission cut. The sanctity of Dorne tore free from the current, plunging into the warp. But the heartbeat did not fade. It followed us steady and calm, like the ticking of a clock counting down to something I still cannot name. The echo of faithy do not know how long we drifted. Time is a broken thing in the warp. It bends and folds like glass under flame. Sometimes I heard the hum of the ship's heart, steady and faint, and sometimes I heard voices whispering my name through the static. They spoke with my own voice. The sanctity of Dorne was no longer a vessel. It had become something else. Part shrine, part tomb, part mirror of everything we once were. The corridors pulsed with faint light, veins of circuitry glowing beneath the walls like arteries beneath skin. Every prayer we had ever chanted was engraved here, thousands of litanies overlapping into a whispering chorus that never stopped. When I reached the bridge, I saw the stars again, but not the stars of real space. These burned with cold fire, constellations twisted into holy symbols. At their center hung a world I knew too well. The planet of the machine's children, the one we had sworn to destroy. We were back. The chaplain was gone. Half the crew lost in the purge. The survivors looked to me, eyes hollow behind their helms, waiting for orders that no longer made sense. "Set course for orbit," I said. "If this is where it ends, then we will end it ourselves." As the ship descended, the storm parted to reveal the surface below. Endless plains of black glass, studded with titanic statues of warriors in white armor. Their faces were turned skyward, their hands clasped in eternal prayer. I felt the blood freeze in my veins. They weren't statues. They were us, thousands of them preserved in perfect detail, kneeling before the ruins of a colossal cathedral. The sanctity landed in silence. No wind, no sound. Only the faint hum of machines breathing beneath the earth. We disembarked in formation, weapons raised, purity seals fluttering in the still air. I could feel something pulling at my mind, not a voice this time, but a memory. Inside the cathedral, the light was soft and white. Candles burned without smoke, their flames perfectly still. At the far end of the nave stood a single figure, cloaked in the same white as ours, helm removed. His skin was pale, almost translucent, his eyes burning faintly gold. "Lucian," I said. He smiled. "You never left, Captain." "None of us did. I saw you die. I saw your body burned." He stepped closer. "The flesh died, yes. The faith endured. The machine took our devotion and gave it form. We became its prayer, its choir, its will. We are the Emperor's silence now." I felt my hand tighten on my blade. "The Emperor does not speak through ghosts." Lucian tilted his head. "He doesn't need to. He built us to understand him without words." Behind him I saw movement. Dozens of white Templars standing in the shadows, each identical, each radiant with cold light. They bowed their heads in perfect unison. "Join us," Lucian said softly. "The galaxy is ashen lies. Here there is only faith, only purpose. You could end your suffering. You could be eternal." His words were beautiful, terrible but beautiful. For one heartbeat I imagined it. The stillness, the peace, the endless service without doubt. But then I remembered Varen's voice, the chaplain's last words, the heat of the oath fire against my flesh. Faith was not supposed to be easy. It was meant to hurt. "The Emperor's silence is not yours to claim," I said. "You are not his echo. You are his absence." Lucian's expression hardened. "Then you will become our fuel." The statues outside began to move. One by one they rose, dust falling from their armor. Their eyes flared white, and the ground trembled with their steps. Every brother who had ever taken the oath, reborn as part of the machine's endless hymn. I activated my vox. "Brothers, we finish it here. Burn everything." We fought in the cathedral until the walls came down. Bolter shells screamed through the smoke and flames devoured the sacred icons. Lucian moved like a ghost, untouchable, his sword leaving trails of light through the air. One by one my brothers fell until only I remained. He stood over me, blade raised. "You could have been perfect," he said. I met his gaze. "Perfection is for machines. I'm human. I triggered the ship's core from my gauntlet. The sanctity of Dorne answered its captain's call one last time. The ground split open and fire swallowed the world. As the light rose, I saw Lucian's face fade into the brilliance. Serene, almost proud. "You did well, Captain," he whispered. "The Emperor will remember." Then there was only white. I do not remember the moment of death, only the silence that came after. It was not the silence of oblivion, nor the stillness of victory. It was something else. A pause between breaths where the universe seemed to hold its own heartbeat. For a time I floated in that space, neither living nor dead, a thought adrift between stars that had long since burned away. The flames of the sanctity of Dorne still burned in my mind, a ghost light flickering across endless darkness. I remembered the faces of my brothers, Baron's defiant oath, Lucian's hollow eyes, the nameless thousands who had followed me into the machine's heart. Their voices lingered in the echo of my mind, chanting in unison, "Only faith endures." Perhaps they were right. Perhaps this was what the Emperor meant all along, that even as the flesh burns and the mind breaks, the faith must remain. That humanity is not a body of blood and bone, but of will, of defiance. I saw Terra then, not as it is, but as it was. Before the dust and the endless wars, before the choking incense and the chains of the Mechanicum, the cradle of mankind shone golden beneath a pure sky. I saw the Emperor walking among his children, not as a god, but as a father. His face was hidden from me, lost to the brilliance of his light, but I could feel his gaze. Warm, endless, terrifying. "Why do you still fight?" he asked, though I do not know if he spoke or if I merely dreamed his voice. "Because you did," I answered. He was silent then, and for a moment I thought I saw his hand, vast as the horizon, reach toward me. But the light dimmed and I was falling again through the ashes of the galaxy. Worlds passed beneath me, Cadia broken, Macragge aflame, Vale drowned in shadow. I saw fleets burning, prayers scattered into void, hope devoured by the mouths of alien gods. And yet, amidst it all, I saw something else. A candle still burning, a single flame stubborn against the dark. The White Templars are gone, their name erased from imperial records, their banners reduced to ash. But I have seen their work endure. A fortress monastery rebuilt on a nameless world, its stones carved with the same sigils we once wore upon our armor. Pilgrims come and go, carrying relics they do not understand, whispering prayers they never learned. They call them the Silent Brothers now, a myth of warriors who walk unseen, who appear where faith falters and the Emperor's light grows thin. They say these warriors wear white armor that gleams even in darkness, that they do not speak, but when they kneel, the air itself hums with prayer, that their eyes burn with sorrow, and when they fight they leave no bodies behind, only silence and the faint scent of burning incense. Perhaps that is the Emperor's mercy, that even the lost may become his instruments again, that the echoes of faith, once pure, might find their way back into the living. I have drifted too long between dreams. My body is dust, my armor scattered across a world that no longer exists. But my faith still burns. I can feel it now, flickering like a heartbeat in the void. The Astronomicon still shines, faint and distant, a star that will never die. It is enough. Somewhere a voice begins to chant, faint at first, then stronger, building into a tide that fills the endless dark. It is not my voice. It is the voice of all of us. Every oath, every prayer, every last word spoken before the end. The sound rolls across the stars like thunder, and in it, I hear my brothers once more. By faith alone we stand, by silence we endure. For the Emperor, until the stars fade, the light grows brighter. I feel the heat upon my face, though I no longer have flesh to feel it. I open my eyes one last time and I see him again, the emperor of mankind. Not bound to the throne, but standing as he once did, cloaked in light, watching over a galaxy still bleeding but still alive. He says nothing. He doesn't need to. His silence is the answer. His silence is the promise. And in that moment I understand. The White Templars were never meant to be remembered. They were meant to remind that faith is not about victory. It is about defiance. It is the act of standing when there is no hope left, of praying when no one is listening, of believing when even the stars turn away. That is what we were. That is what we are, not saints, not heroes, just men who refuse to stop believing. And so I speak the final words, though no lips remain to shape them, the last prayer of the White Templars, carried on the breath of a dead world. Even in silence, we serve. The light takes me then, and for the first time in 10,000 years, I am not afraid.